Thank you for joining us at the Screen Podcast. We really appreciate you listening. We're offering you insight and analysis of the global film industry brought to you by the teams from Screen International and ScreenDaily.com. I'm Wendy Mitchell. I'm a contributing editor at Screen, and I'm here to tell you we are not done with Cannes yet. It is just, you can't just go for 10 days and forget it. We have to really keep delving into some of the bits of Cannes you might not have heard yet. And this is part of our famous and much requested Gems series, where we talk to some of our major critics about some of the gems that they found in the festival that maybe hasn't won a prize, maybe hasn't gotten quite the big deals, that hasn't gotten the attention they think a film deserves. So I love these episodes because it's just happy people being able to champion films that they appreciated. And I think the world needs a little of this sometimes. So first we're welcoming Wendy Ide, who is Senior International Critic. Welcome back, Wendy.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I mean, it's one of my favorite things as well, getting to talk about those films that really moved me at a festival. This is why we do this. This
Exactly.
is why, to get to discover something that's really exciting.
It's not just the riches and the the glory, is it? And I'm sad I didn't even see Wendy Ide on the ground to admire her many stylish Cannes outfits, but maybe I'll get a slideshow later. Wendy, before we even let you talk about the gems that, were a little bit more under the radar, there was one film that did win a smaller prize that I think we were just talking informally, and you said, oh, this film is still really staying with me. Do you want to just mention that one quickly?
I would love to just mention it because I saw A Man of His Time before the festival. I got to see one of those very early screenings, and I was, I admired it. I thought this is really strong. Reviewed it. Didn't quite realize the staying power that this film was going to have. I am still thinking about it. It's a week after the festival's finished, so that film is still in my mind. So I think, for just the sort of textures and the being able to really dig into it and see more and more as you get the distance from it, that's a film that has really resonated with me. And so I'm hoping that that's going to find a home. I certainly talked to a couple of distributors who are very interested in it. So I'm hoping it's going to have a bit of a longer life, but it, as yet has not been sold, to my knowledge.
Thank you for mentioning that one because, yes, it did break the rule. It won a prize. It won Best Screenplay. But this film, in its original title, Notre Salut, or A Man of His Time, sounds like another one that didn't get quite enough attention and is really staying with Wendy through sleepless nights and got thousands of films. So thank you, Wendy, for that one. But yeah, let's look at some other gems that aren't... Well, we've got one from competition that you liked. That
Let's go with that.
Yeah, didn't end up with any Chopard statue of any sort. But tell us about this one.
I'm astonished that The Beloved by Rodrigo Sorogoyen did not get a prize. I had that right at the top of my list for an acting prize for Javier Bardem, perhaps. I mean, it could have actually got 2 acting prizes. I think it's really special. So, yes, it's a story of a film director and his estranged adult daughter, Amelia, played by Victoria Luengo, who is also astonishing. So it's kind of a sentimental value.
I was going to say, I think we saw this last year. Yeah, he's a filmmaker.
This is the unsentimental value. This is really a lot.
Nice.
It's a very different beast. Now, talking of beasts, Rodrigo Sorogoyen, I first encountered him in Cannes a couple of years ago with The Beasts, which was phenomenal, an absolute kind of knockout film. I think it won several Goyas. It also won a César for Best Foreign Film. It was phenomenal. So I'm a bit of a Sorogoyen fangirl. I also adored. He did a 10-part series called The New Years, which I think is still on Mubi. If anyone wants to catch it, it's great. So what Sorogoyen does brilliantly is, a lot of things, but he does these very sort of extended, really meaty scenes. So this film opens with a meeting between the father, Esteban, who is this kind of celebrated but very controversial film director, and his daughter, who he hasn't seen for 13 years, in a restaurant. Now, this scene plays out for 20 minutes. And it's really, really extraordinary. And I think, anyone who knows Bardem will have seen him presumably in, No Country for Old Men, knows that he can be utterly terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
So he does this amazing thing in the scene, and he's being very kind of friendly, and it's slightly awkward. They're kind of nervous around each other. They don't really trust each other. And then they're talking about, a memory that he has of, when she was a child. And then she contradicts him slightly about this memory, about, what it was like for her to have this, at this point in his life, he was a very violent alcoholic. So she mentions that. And his face, Bardem's face, just suddenly hardens, and you suddenly see this glimpse of this murderous character that you've seen in other films. And he's so frightening. And there's another amazing, really long extended scene, probably longer than 20 minutes, when he's actually directing the film that he's got her to star in. And all the actors can't get the scene right, and he gets angrier and angrier, and he is terrifying. It's really, really good. But I think, he also does some very interesting stuff in terms of using different film stocks and different aspect ratios, which initially I was slightly like, what is he doing here? This is really jarring, and it's really sort of unsettling me. But then actually that's the point, because we are in this sort of situation where, like the central character, like the daughter, it's very unpredictable. You can't settle in this world, because you have this wild card kind of maverick character who is very unpredictable. He could fly off the rails at any moment. He's got this terrible temper. He's quite, he's known to be violent. There's this wonderful line where, they talk about him headbutting a French actor. And I think, it's fairly clear which French actor they're talking about, although it's not actually, spelled out. But, I think it's really good. I wouldn't be at all surprised if someone picked this up fairly soon. Definitely, it's.
I mean, it sounds like it could be, with the right distributor and the right positioning, an awards play for Bardem, because people love him. And everybody I talked to in Cannes, I haven't seen this film yet, but everybody said he's never been better. And, that's saying something with him. Like, he's always good.
Yeah, he's an absolute knocker. And the film is great. I would have loved it to win something, because that would have given it that platform for the awards. It could still go on to to win things and to be in the awards conversation. But
it's in safe hands. Goodfellas is selling it, so hopefully
right.
there will be lots of deals being done.
I would be very surprised if we didn't hear something soon. Definitely.
Okay.
Anyway, fingers crossed for that one.
Great. So, tell us your next gem.
The next
Wendy.
one I'm going to talk about, I didn't get to review this. This is one that I loved. These kind of discoveries where you just you wander into something and you are completely surprised and completely charmed. So Words of Love is the film I'm going to talk about. It was In Uncertain Regard by Rudy Rosenberg. And it's a little French thing, French drama, family drama about a single mother she's got two children by two different fathers. The older is a daughter who desperately wants to have contact with her father. He has completely rejected her, so there's no contact whatsoever. They live, it's fairly impoverished. They don't have a huge amount of money. So you're kind of getting very, Dardenne Brothers vibes from this film. It's quite sort of social realist. But the thing about it is, it's absolutely hilarious. It's so well written, and the kids are fantastic. So you have this, really tender and quite sort of raw portrait of a mother-daughter relationship, which is really under stress, and it's kind of fragmenting a little bit, and they're being pushed apart by this obsessive need for the daughter to find her father. But also there's some really, really good jokes in it. Plus there's a great dog, and I'm gutted this dog didn't actually make it into contention for the Palme d'Or.
I will say, as a Palme d'Or jury member, we had heard about this dog, but we had missed some screenings. And so we asked for a link for the jury, and the French said, mais non. So we could not really consider this dog. But I'm sure, whoever you are out there, doggy, I'm sure it's a great performance.
It is. It's actually genuinely a great performance. This dog is very central. It's a key part of the story, particularly the final act. It plays quite a significant role, and it's a
Okay.
really unusual dog. I've not seen one. I think it's a Coody sheepdog, so it's got this very
Oh,
interesting kind of mottled colouring.
oh.
It delivers a proper performance, and it's also the storyline is this dog is obsessed with cheese. Um, Specifically camembert, so
Oh,
which
why not?
disagrees with it
Oh,
violently. So yeah, we have some kind of comic. Some of the more broad comedy comes from
from
the
the
dog's
dog's
cheese habit.
digestion systems.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that I think is a terrific little film, and
Yeah.
just so kind of well observed on the kind of the dynamics of a family, and just the sort of the little in jokes that you get, and the quirks. It's really lovely,
Oh,
really
I'm
special.
so glad you mentioned this one. I really wanted to see it, because it does feel like sometimes these family stories that aren't Dardennes or that might have some humor in them can get a little lost in Cannes, at any
Exactly.
festival, but particularly in Cannes. So Studio Canal is selling that one.
Okay.
Yeah. So, that sounds
Dig
like
deep
it.
in your pockets,
Yes.
buyers.
I
This
mean,
was Lawrence is lovely. I really liked it.
okay, and get some camembert ready for the release. Wendy, I think you have an animated film for us last.
What a year for animation at Cannes. There was so many strong animations, and I felt like a lot of the conversation was focused on the ones with more adult themes, or the young
Mm,
adult films like In Waves, which was bought by
mm.
Netflix, or there was We Are Aliens in Director's Fortnight, which is definitely very kind of adult in its theme, or young adult. That's an anime, or Tangles, which deals with dementia. All of these, I think, are going to be significant titles when we come to talk about awards. But I wanted to just mention one which is more of a sort of a young audience, targeted at young audiences, but is so incredibly sumptuously beautiful that I think anyone would want to watch it because it's just special. That's Viva Carmen. It's the third film by Sebastian Laudenbach, who some people might have seen his previous film. I think he co-directed that, and that was Chicken for
Chick
Linda.
Chicken for Linda. I mean, the best title of in
Chicken for Linda
years,
won
and it
Annecy
was
about
great.
3 or 4 years ago, and it's gorgeous. What I love about Laudenbach is he has a very distinctive animation style. He uses this very sparse graphic line drawing and full of life and energy and air, and you just get the sense of a whole character and their movement and the way they interact with the world just by using maybe 2 or 3 lines and a splash of color. So he applies this graphic style to the story of Carmen, Bizet's Carmen. But this is Carmen from the story sort of reimagined from the perspective of the children's chorus at the very beginning of the opera.
Ah.
He takes the same approach to that he uses to the graphics, to the music. So we hear little bits of Bizet's Carmen, little kind of refrains, but it's stripped back and kind of deconstructed and in a really inventive way. And we have, Carmen's love story, tragic love story, through the eyes of a bunch of urchins who are desperately trying to sort of intervene because they know something bad is going to happen. So these little pickpockets are going around trying to sort of intervene by stealing the knife, which has been predicted that will kill Carmen. It's just gorgeous. I mean, every single frame of it is so beautiful. And I think it's a little different from Laudenbach's other films in that it's really flooded with color. He usually has this kind of quite sparse, airy, lots of white. This one, magenta and tangerines. You could eat it. It just looks like a kind of a load of sorbets all kind of mixed up together. It's just gorgeous.
And it's set
Really
in Seville, yes?
set in Seville, yeah.
So that
And
gives it a colorful backdrop to begin with, I
absolutely,
guess.
and
Yeah.
just the use of light as well, because obviously Seville, all these big sort of tall tenements and the sun beaming through them, it's really, really gorgeous, and just one of the most visually distinctive animations that I saw in a very, very, very strong year for animation in Cannes.
Yeah, it really was. And, not a dud amongst them, too.
Not that
It's
I
like,
saw. I
yeah, not
thought
that I
it
saw
was
either. So
spectacularly good.
animation's really working well in Cannes, which is exciting. Viva Carmen is sold by Global Constellation. Wendy, it's not your job. You don't have to market the film, but, would this be the kind of film you could take a 6-year-old to? Is it for a 10-year-old? I mean, obviously, it sounds like I'm going to go see it as a something-year-old, but um, or do kids care about opera, or is it done in a way that it just works?
It works because it's not about opera. It's a child's eye view of, it's a kid's adventure,
Yeah,
basically. Um, and it sort of, it twists it around and makes it a little bit more about children finding family. So it's almost, it's a parallel story to Carmen. So we're focused on the kids. And I think very young children will just resonate with the fact
love
that
it.
kids
Yeah.
are having an adventure. Older children will probably appreciate just how gorgeous it looks.
Mm.
Adults are just going to be blown away. Now, I can't speak for Bizet purists on this. They might feel that it doesn't actually honor the story. But then, think about it. Carmen has been reinterpreted so many times. We've had kind of African American versions. We had a South African version. Why shouldn't we have a child's eye view of
Yeah.
Carmen, which sort of strips back the music and puts in lots of flamenco and lots of energy and mischief, and it's just gorgeous. Really, a spectacular film.
I'm already picturing. I want to go to Seville. I want to see this in an outdoor screening, doing my flamenco.
With pickpockets.
Well, maybe not with pickpockets, but with lots of fun kids enjoying themselves too.
Mm,
Those sound like an amazing pick of films, Wendy.
I think
Overall, any impression of your Cannes this year? I know no critic can see everything, but you do see a lot.
I did. I'm already kicking myself because I missed a couple of things which everybody's talking about. Obviously, I can't really mention them if I haven't seen them, but I've still got. I know I've got a lot of things to catch up with, which excites me.
Mm.
I know that there's some really good stuff in store. I wouldn't say it was the absolute top vintage year, but it was a strong year, and I certainly I've come away feeling enthused and full of excitement about the coming months because there's some very good stuff, but I think there's plenty more coming out in the later festivals to look forward to as well.
Yeah, I think some of these, yeah, and I think once we get away from that sort of exhaustion of Cannes, it's kind of like you said with that film we mentioned at the top. It's like, yeah, it was a very good film. And then if it's something staying with you 6 months
Yeah,
down the line, then it was a very, very good film. So yeah,
exactly,
it's
exactly.
not just what happens in those delirious week or so. But thank you, Wendy. I'm sure we'll be back to talk to you maybe around, what could we say, Venice time? Or
Well,
who
absolutely.
knows?
And I've got Annecy before that and Carla Vivari. So, I'm always here to talk to you about
Okay,
festivals.
yes,
So,
we got to remember all our festival friends.
we have, yes.
So thank you so much, Wendy. That was great. I think we all have a few more films on our watch lists. So thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Now we are going to Los Angeles with Tim Grierson, Screen's senior U.S. critic. Tim, thanks for joining us once again.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me back. Yeah.
We are coming to you now, as you know, for some Cannes gems, and I'm being that strict high school principal. I'm not letting you mention any film that won any award. So, with that in mind, do you have a film you want to shout about for us?
Yeah, I have 2 competition films and 1 in Director's Fortnight. And it was actually funny because it was actually kind of an easy criteria of picking movies that didn't win anything
Didn't win.
because there were several great movies that deservedly won prizes, but I also thought there were some things that got overlooked, and so, yeah, happy. I feel like when I'm on the podcast with you and we're talking about gems, I often talk about something that's a bit divisive that some people absolutely hated, but I want to go to the mat for. And let's start with that. There was a competition film, Moulin, which is the new
Okay.
film from Laszlo Nemes, who got his start in the Cannes competition all those years ago with Son of Saul.
Which we all agreed that one was a masterpiece, I think.
I am a big fan, but I know people who
Yeah.
hate it.
Oh, okay,
I
never
know
mind. We
yes.
don't all agree.
Yeah, it's funny though. I would say that since then, Nemesh's career has been only more and more divisive in terms of people not being on board with his films. I liked Orphan that premiered in
That was
Venice
in
last
Venice.
year.
Yeah, that was a bit mixed, though, reception, I
Yeah,
would
and I don't
say.
think it's great, but I thought it was, I thought it was strong enough. I think his new film, which was not warmly received, called Moulin, is about Jean Moulin, one of the chief architects in the French Resistance during World War II. And it's kind of a procedural, in a way. It stars Gilles Lelouch as Moulin, and the first half of the movie is practically Army of Shadows. It's very much a World War II espionage film as we see Moulin moving from room to room, space to space, sort of navigating and leading the resistance. And it's kind of like a throwback kind of spy thriller sort of thing. Not a lot of action per se, but a lot of intrigue and suspense. And then I don't think it's a spoiler to say that about halfway through the film, he does get captured, and the film sort of shifts gears, and it becomes sort of a battle of wills between him and a leader of the Gestapo, played by Lars Eidinger. And they basically are just sort of squaring off the second half of the film. He's trying to get information from Moulin, who is doing his best not to give any information as he is tortured and imprisoned and goes through emotional and psychological torture and things like that. For people who didn't like the film at Cannes, they thought it was a little one note. They felt it was a little maybe nothing that they had seen. It wasn't anything that they had seen before.
Yeah.
For me, the stripped down quality of it is actually what I liked so much about it. I think you can generally accuse Nemish as a filmmaker of being someone who is not the sunniest of dispositions in his film, shall we say, and also can lean heavily on the grimness and the bleakness. And sometimes it can feel a little too mannered for my taste. For the most part, I don't think Moulin rather falls into that trap. I think it's a really, really gripping story. And like a lot of films, unfortunately, at Cannes, they're timely now in a way that they're talking about standing up to fascism and the evils of fascism and what it takes to person by person bring down a fascist regime. I think Lelouch is actually really quite good in the film. This is not a character in which you are getting given a ton of backstory. He doesn't have a grand dramatic arc, but the way that he plays them is sort of like quietly heroic in a way that I found really, really captivating. It's funny because I think that generally speaking, most people thought that the Cannes competition this year was a bit underwhelming. And that's one reason why people liked that action horror film Hope so much, because it was such a
something different.
it was something different. Weirdly enough, while I would not say that Moulin is a rousing action movie by any stretch of the imagination, the straightforwardness of it and the narrative engine of that movie was for me a change of pace from much of what we had in the competition. And I found it stirring and upsetting in all the right ways, and also kind of rousing. As I say, if you look at our Screen Critics grid, it's on the mid to lower side. I think it ended up with like about 2 stars, kind of average, maybe a little bit below that. But I was a big fan. I also have to say Dave Calhoun, who reviewed it for us, is also a big fan, and I very much agreed with his review for us.
Okay, everybody go read Dave's review. Great to have Dave Calhoun writing for Screen.
Absolutely.
And I should say, I saw a friend. I have not seen this film yet, which is why I'm trying to be quiet and not interrupt. But I talked to one friend who found it just so devastating. And they did say, it's kind of a heavy watch, but they found themselves, as they walked through Cannes later in the day, just sort of spontaneously getting a bit teary. And somebody was like, "Are you okay?" And then they would cry a bit more, and then 2 hours later they might cry a bit more. So yeah, I think this is a film that probably also will benefit from people seeing it outside of the exhaustion of Cannes, the heaviness of some of these Cannes competition themes, as you've mentioned, that if some people can just sort of see this film on its own, it might even play a bit better.
Yeah, and I think in some ways it's one of Nemesh's most accessible films, weirdly enough,
Okay.
because it is in a straightforward sort of genre setting that I think general audiences will recognize. So I think that might actually help it as it looks for distribution.
Okay, great. What would be your next gem?
Is also in competition, and it's a film that you and I have both seen and that we are
Oh,
both
good.
fans of. It is The Man I Love, the new film from Ira Sachs. He's an American filmmaker, one of two American filmmakers in the competition. James Gray with Paper Tiger was the other. This is the second time that Ira Sachs has been in competition. He was previously in the competition for Frankie, speaking of divisive films, which I actually liked, but not many people did that year in Cannes. The Man I Love is set in the 1980s. It stars Rami Malek as a New York City theater performer of your sort of experimental underground New York theater of the 1980s.
Very downtown. Yeah.
Very, very downtown. And what's funny is that, Ira Sachs's last film was Peter Hujar's Day, which is based on Peter Hujar, who was an actual downtown New York City photographer. If you didn't know better and you went into The Man I Love, you might actually think that the Rami Malek character is also a real person. I think he's inspired by different people, but he's playing a fictional character. And Rami Malek is in almost every scene in the movie, and he is the lead in a production that he's having some struggles with. He has a long-term partner played by Tom Sturridge.
Really nice performance by Tom Sturridge, I have to say. Just so understated and lovely.
I think the whole ensemble is fantastic. But yes, I think Tom Sturridge is great. There is a newcomer who kind of enters the orbit of these characters. He's played by Luther Ford, who's a relative newcomer himself. There are some romantic complications that happen there. Rebecca Hall plays Rami Malek's sister in the film. For me, The Man I Love it feels like a continuation of Peter Hujar's Day, which premiered in Sundance last year. Both movies are very intimate stories. They're very sort of specific looks at a New York that no longer exists. This film is not just set in the 1980s in New York, but it's very much set in the backdrop, or with the backdrop of the AIDS epidemic, just sort of, destroying the artistic community, the gay community in New York City at the time. And one of the things I felt after watching The Man I Love is, I think between Passages, Peter Hujar's Day, and The Man I Love, Ira Sachs I think he's been an exceptional filmmaker throughout his career, but he seems to have shifted in recent films to making these really kind of micro, intimate, you are there kind of portraits of these lives where you feel like you are just being dropped into worlds and you sort of understand them as they go along. You will learn the rules of this kind of ecosystem just by hanging out with these people. They don't explain themselves. This is not a movie. The Man I Love is not a film where people are explaining a bunch of things. You're just watching them exist in the world where they exist. And you see people living their lives, dealing with heartbreak, dealing with love, trying to make art, trying to kind of find some sort of meaning in their lives. And the modesty of that, for me anyway, ratchets up to something that feels much more universal and emotional and almost kind of cosmic. And I think that Rami Malek is somebody who, it's funny, Ira Sachs cast him because he liked him so much in Mr. Robot, which is worth pointing out because Mr. Robot, when that show came out, that's when I think a lot of people discovered Rami Malek. He had done some other things, but that was sort of his big breakthrough. And since then, all of my friends who really loved Mr. Robot never talk about Rami Malek anymore because
they
really
did not like the rap.
They
and the Nazi interrogator. I mean, that
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
let's skip ahead of
They
that
don't, they
one.
don't like
Yeah.
they don't like the Freddie Mercury. They don't like
Yeah.
they don't like the things that he's done since then. And opinions were divided in Cannes about The Man I Love. I think Rami Malek is terrific in it. I
Mm.
think this is a really, really strong performance, playing a guy who in some ways is supposed to be enigmatic and unknowable. The Man I Love is a song title that's also used in the film, but it very much also refers to the character that Rami Malek is playing. And Ira Sachs and Rami Malek, I think, work together really nicely to create this portrait of someone who is always a bit at arm's length from the characters and from us. And he's a bit of a mystery, but we understand why he brings people into his orbits. It's it's not that different than some of the dynamics that are going on in Passages as well. Somebody who is unknowable and maybe unlovable in certain ways, and yet they have this like tractor beam pull on other people. And I think that Sachs is just his films are so alive now that the fact that he's making these movies in period settings makes them all the more poignant because the characters feel so alive on the screen, but that time is gone and the 1980s are no longer with us. A lot of those people that we probably have seen in the movie probably contract AIDS along the way and have horrible ends to their lives, but they're so alive in this movie. And so I thought it was one of the best things I saw in competition.
Yeah. I was pretty shocked this left empty-handed. I'm so glad you wanted to talk about this one. Yeah, I like that you used the word micro because I was going to use the word small, which I think can have a bad connotation, but I found this film so precise.
Right.
Like, yeah, Jemmy, this character is kind of unknowable and he's kind of mysterious, but he feels so singular. It does not feel like one downtown gay amongst, hundreds. It feels like one exact real person. And yeah, I also loved Rami Malek's performance. I read some reviews saying, oh, he needs to tone it down. I'm like, I think they might be missing that Jimmy, this character, wasn't going to tone anything down for anybody. I think, yeah, I like that it's a bit mysterious of, some of his backstory. Such lovely, just authentic moments. I love the scene where they're sitting around the table and the sister and the brother-in-law, who is Ibn Mas Bakrak, cousin from the bear. So you've got this, and they're singing different things in different ways. And that just felt, again, like you said, so alive. And it also, for some reason, just made me think, nobody's ever going to sing around a table like that while we all have cell phones. And it really made me so appreciative for this really specific portrait of New York City, downtown, creative community at this time. Yeah, I liked the scale of it. I think we're in total agreement. And I have to say, since Cannes, my Spotify playlist has included What Have They Done to My Song Ma by Melanie. The
Beautiful
musical
moment.
choices in here are really spot on.
Yeah, there's not a single on the nose needle drop, which you can't say of the for all Cannes films that we saw.
No, we can't.
The musical choices are exactly right. They're beautifully done, and also Ira Sachs folds in these really great scenes of preparing to put on a theater production, which are also really, really nice, and also doesn't explain a lot, but you just get that feeling. Ira Sachs recently has talked about the fact that he wants to make movies where you cut into the middle of the scenes, that you don't see the beginnings of them, you're just in the middle. And to me,
it's like we're cutting into the middle of a life here,
yeah,
or
and that's
tragically sort of towards the end of a life,
and
you're not getting everything.
And the scenes often feel like you are jumping into them in the middle, as opposed to like you're immersed and you have to kind of get your bearings, but it's such a warm, enveloping spirit that he creates. So yeah, I'm glad that you were a fan too, because I
just I have almost been a bit teary while we've been talking about it. It really, in some ways, you could say it's like quite a slight story, but it added up to so much, and it's really stayed with me. So yes, we're fans. Tell us another gem. Tim?
So as opposed to the other two films, this film actually has distribution, at least in the U.S. This is Clarissa, which played in Director's Fortnight, and Neon had the film even before the festival began. It is the second film from twin brother filmmakers, Ari and Shuko Asiri. And it is an adaptation of Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway, set in Nigeria. And I've had some people ask, like, if you haven't read Mrs. Dalloway, or if it's been a long time since you've read Mrs. Dalloway, will you be sort of thrown or confused? And I would say no, because it's been quite some time since I've read the book, and I feel like it's been interesting to read reviews since then that talk about similarities and things that the brothers changed in their adaptation. But I think you can watch the movie perfectly fine as is and be quite moved by it. Sophie Okoneno plays the titular Clarissa, and as in the original book, she is putting together a party, and the film is essentially set over the 24 hours kind of before, during, and then sort of after the party. And people from kind of her life that she hasn't seen in quite some time are coming to the party. And so we see the present day storyline of getting the party together and seeing these people she hasn't seen in a long time. Those are intercut with flashbacks that are really, really nicely done of her younger life and some of those people that she knew back then, some of them who we're going to see in the present day scenes. David Oyelowo plays a former love interest in the modern day story, and her relationship and her rapport with Oyelowo is really, really quite beautiful. The film is shot on film, and both in the present and in the past, the locations really kind of creates a sort of like beautiful, evocative spell. But it's also edited by Blair McClendon, and I wanted to sort of single him out because Blair McClendon is first of all, just a fabulous editor. But he's worked on films like After Sun, and if you remember After Sun, the Charlotte Wells film, that movie did a really incredible job of
with mixing time and memory.
Weaving past and present, and the idea of memory, very exactly. And this idea of memory and how we remember things, and how our memories aren't perfect, and how our memories aren't really past. They're just sort of present, but just a little hazy and
lingering.
Yeah, and that is something that also plays very beautifully in Clarissa. I've had people who went to see Cannes, and went to Cannes to see this movie, and this, Wendy, that when you see a lot of films, your brain can get a little foggy and hard to pick up on things. And I have talked to people who liked Clarissa quite a lot, who admitted that it took them a while to realize that everything was not in the present day, that there's actually past and present happening sort of simultaneously.
Maybe time for a rewatch,
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, the fact that these people still like the movie, I think, speaks to its qualities, but I think it also suggests that there's a really nice weaving between past and present as Clarissa sort of looks back at the entirety of her life. Because the movie is set in Nigeria, there's also conversations, like active conversations about post-colonialism and sort of the state of Nigeria. I was a big fan of Hamaguchi's All of a Sudden, which to me was the movie that was the most kind of lyrical in terms of it's just this conversation and the ideas in that movie. But Clarissa's sort of a close second in terms of just the ideas that are also kind of bouncing around in this movie. So it's not remotely glib that the Asiri brothers moved this to Nigeria. They're talking about things that are going on in present-day Nigeria and using Mrs. Dalloway, the book, as a means to do it. I don't want to say too much about the ending, but of the film's endings that I saw at Cannes, it's interesting that you mentioned that your friend was a little weepy.
Crying.
This movie didn't make me cry, but I will say it has a real knockout of an ending. Everything builds to something, and that build.
I
up
like
is
a
really
knockout
worthwhile.
ending. Yes, please.
Yeah, and it's always I think a bit of a risk to tell listeners, oh, this movie has a
Wait
knockout
for the
ending.
ending.
Wait
Yeah.
for the ending.
Okay.
But I think the ending is a knockout in the same way that the rest of the movie is really well made, in that it's very quiet. It's very subtle. It's not a movie that goes for big emotional kind of catharsis or big fireworks. It's not that kind of film. My hope is that, Neon, has the rights to like every fourth film it can. This one will be a more interesting one because it doesn't have an award, it doesn't have big stars, those,
It's got
Okonedo.
solid
Yeah,
stars.
it's got Okonedo, it's got David Oyelowo.
And it's got Io Edeberry, speaking of the bear.
I was just going to say, and Io is really quite good. She is in the flashback sequences in the film, and I've been a fan of hers because I like the bears so much, and she has been mostly stuck recently in movies that were not worthy of her. It's nice to see her in a film where she actually gets to do something really kind of worthwhile. So it does have 3 decent, marketable stars in it. And so my hope is that because it got such great reviews, got so much press out of Cannes, even though it was, in quotes, just in Director's Fortnight, I think it's going to get a decent amount of attention coming out of the festival. And my hope is that people will give it a chance, because I think also the Mrs. Dalloway thing, that connection will also help the film in terms of commercial.
But without Nicole Kidman's dodgy prosthetic nose, like in The Hours, I hope.
This is I can go on record saying that no one has a dodgy prosthetic nose in Clarissa. So I don't know if that helps or hurts at the box office.
Yeah.
But
we'll see.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I really look forward. I heard a lot. Anybody I talked to who saw that really liked it. But I mean, I think that, Director's Fortnight is amazing, and films do pop there, and this was one that popped. But that's a smaller cinema. It's harder to get tickets. So, I think some people who wanted to see that film haven't seen it yet. So we will keep tabs on that film. And I'm somebody who, people don't know this, but I have been to Nigeria a few times. I used to help run some film screenwriting labs and things that connected the Nigerian industry. And I think it's such a cinematic place. And I'm really happy to hear they shot on 35 mil. And really excited for that one.
Yeah, I think that you will, especially by being there, I think you will. I mean, I've never been, and just the locales and the way that the brothers sort of shoot the past and present. It's very, very lovely. Just a visually kind of impressive piece of work. Yeah.
And I'm going to open a can of worms it's not an award winner, but you mentioned a sort of a standout ending. And I have to mention that end of Paper Tiger, the James Gray. I mean, it was like we're in Apocalypse Now, but in Queens. And I just thought that was so cinematic. This scene of Adam Driver and this sort of, it's feels like it's rural, but it's in an urban location, and I won't spoil it for people, but that was pretty special.
It's a great ending, and one of my favorite performances was Adam Driver from the festival. I think he is, after years of doing very good work in very good movies, this performance feels like the sort of thing that reminds you of why people were so excited about Adam Driver in the first place. He does something that is different than he's normally does in Paper Tiger. And I think that there is a real tragedy to that character. And it is something, the way that Adam Driver sort of slowly unspools that character's own understanding of himself is really quite moving.
It's so good. Yeah, I think it's his best performance ever. And I hope he'll get more attention. I don't know. And Adam Driver is invited to bring Peter Luger steak takeout to my house anytime.
Yeah, but be careful. There might be a catch involved, Wendy.
Oh, yes, that's true.
If he does that, yes.
Don't trust it.
Yeah.
Tim, we better stop because we could go for hours talking about more great films that didn't get prizes, but we'll keep talking about these films, I hope, throughout the year. And I'm sure we'll be talking to you again soon. But thank you, Tim.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
Tim's Gems. Maybe we'll have a little corner.
Oh, I love it. If we can trademark that would be wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we had like Seth Rogen watch and screen for a few days. So maybe Tim's Gems can be trademarked.
Yeah, call my lawyers. Yeah.
Okay, yes, exactly. We'll negotiate the IP rights to that. Thanks again, Tim, and thanks to everybody who has tuned into the Screen podcast. We really appreciate you listening every Thursday. We hope you're not sick of Cannes, but we really wanted to highlight some of these films that we didn't think got quite enough attention. And thanks to the whole team at Screen who makes this possible, including our producer, Ellie Calnan, and our head of digital, Orlando Parfit. So we'll see you again next week.